What's up, everybody? You have just entered Correlation Nation, the only place you need to go to get the best fighter breakdowns. Do yourself a favor, subscribe to the page, like the video. Let's run this up, all right? So today we're going to be traveling all the way over to Shanghai because the UFC is putting on an event over there. We have Mingyang Zhang going against Johnny Walker. Okay, that's the main event. It seems we have 12 bouts, and we are pretty fortunate because one of them could have been scrapped. You know, Brian Ortega came in. He was overweight. He was having issues with his weight cut, apparently, or allegedly had fallen during his cut. And thankfully, Aljamain had allowed this to become a catch weight of 153 pounds. So that will proceed. But without further ado, we're going to hop right into these breakdowns. And I do want to say really quickly that the whole point of this is to break down the fighters, their skill set, their tendencies, what they're good at. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to get an idea of how these guys match up stylistically. And so that's what we do. And then we try to figure out how they're going to play out. So the first matchup we have of the night is going to be Diyar, Nurgozhay, and Uran Satybaldiev. Okay, so these two gentlemen are relatively new to the UFC. I think Nurgozhay came in through Contender Series. He's had one fight in the UFC since. He did drop that. He was submitted via Kimura. And then Uran is a guy that came in on short notice and fought up at heavyweight, and he fared pretty well, you know. And I think that's part of the thing is, like, you got, you know, just a recency bias. I think that's how it always is, you know, when these guys come in on short notice and they fight pretty well, they leave a pretty good impression, and that kind of sticks with people. But let's hop into the notes of these two gentlemen. And so Diyar is a fairly light-footed striker. He's a bit plotty, but does have some range management. He fights behind a nice backside kick. He uses it low and high. He's a diverse kicker. He will counter with his hands. His clinch game looks pretty strong. He throws knees and stays active. He's an active grappler that scrambles pretty well, but is a bit sloppy. Heavy ground and pound, and takedown defense looks pretty good. Now, when we go to his opponent, Uran, this guy is fairly light-footed striker. He does show some evasive footwork, but does have a tendency to stand his ground, looking to brawl in the pocket. Some countering ability, won't quit on himself, and he is a bit slow, physically strong in the clinch. He has a unique ability to kind of just find his way on top. He does advance pretty well, solid top pressure, decent ground and pound, and he will also attack Kimura. So I think all in all, you have a guy that has better footwork on the ground. He's a more dynamic striker, and really ultimately just pretty well-rounded, going against a guy that is looking to kind of brawl in the pocket and find his way on top and then ground and pound you out. And my pick is going to be on Diyar to win this fight. I think it's a tough one. I think it's there's a lot of questions around these guys just because they're both relatively new to the UFC and, maybe haven't fought at the highest level of competition yet. So there are definitely questions around these guys. But I think stylistically, the way I see this playing out is that he's going to be able to use his takedown defense as well as his footwork to kind of keep the fight on the feet until he's ready to take it down, if he sees that's what he wants to do. So yeah, I favor him to win the fight. I don't really necessarily have a method. It could go a lot of different ways. This is a guy that does a little bit of everything. He wins some decisions, wins some knockouts. When you look at his see if we can get into his Tapology. Yeah, when you look at this guy's stuff, he has 6 knockouts, 2 subs, 2 decisions. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, he's a little bit more of a knockout guy. But, you know, at the higher level, like you can see recently. So, if you look at just his past 5, 1, 2, 3, you know, 2 decisions, 2 knockouts, and a loss. Okay, so... yeah. I think I would favor him. It's hard to say how. It's close enough line that if you're looking to bet it, I think the line's close enough that you don't really have to worry about that so much. But my side's going to be on Diyar, and we're just going to move on to the next fight. So the next fight we have... ooh. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's Xiao Long or Long Xiao. Nonetheless, we have him going against Su Young-yu. And I think this is also, I mean, this is similar to the other one in the sense that these guys are relatively new to the UFC. Both of them fought on road to UFC. I don't know if that was like at the same time or whatever, but they did both fight on road to UFC. And let's pull up Long's notes. I'm going to spell it right, I suppose. All right. So Long is a guy that is... he's fairly light-footed striker. He's a bit plotty, but he shows some bounce and evasive footwork. Striking looks okay. Decent backside low kick. Basic loose boxing. Solid power. Seems to have a strong clinch game. He's physically strong. Uses good knees and dirty boxing. He has some wrestling. Seems to scramble and transition pretty well. But there are a lot of unknowns. And then when we look at the other side of it... Su Young-yu is a light-footed striker. He has good movement and solid range management. Questions around his striking. It looks fundamental. He has long straight punches. He has a solid teep and a low kick. Has good speed, but it lacks on the return. He looks to be a good wrestler, really explosive blast double, scrambles, and transitions at a high pace. He can be sloppy, but he floats and advances pretty well. So, I think that when you look at this one stylistically, Su Young is going to be more evasive. Like, he's going to have better footwork on the feet. And, you know, Long's stand-up game is more, you know, it's not the most technical. Like, I think it would be better for him if, like, he had somebody that was similar to him coming at him. But in this case, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that Su Young-yu is going to be more, you know, picking his shots, moving around a little bit, and looking for an opportunity to shoot for a takedown. And I do think that he's going to be quite a bit better on the ground, just like maybe not as strong. I think that the other thing is with Long, that if he could work his way into the clinch, or if Su Young-yu was like trying to get a body lock or something for a takedown, that'd be one thing. But I don't really see that so much in his game. Like I said, it's more like well-timed blast doubles and stuff like that. So my pick has to be with Su Young-yu. I think that he's going to be able to avoid a lot of what Long is throwing at him on the feet, and then I think that he's going to be able to outwork him on the mat. So I would pick him. And if I had to guess, I would say this probably goes over. I'm going to take him. Let's pull these guys up just real quick, get a little bit of an idea. especially you, because I do think he's going to win. Only three knockouts, 5 submissions. Bunch of decisions of recently. Yep. I think that he's going to win, probably by decision. You know, you look at the over. The over is probably not a bad look either. So that's how I'm gonna look at it. And we're gonna move on. So we got Yizha going against Westin Wilson. Another pretty interesting matchup. Westin Wilson's a huge underdog. Yizha's like he's a minus 1,200 favorite. And let me see what this is real quick. Yeah, we ain't worried about none of that. All right. So let's just pull these guys up. Let's pull their notes up. Yizha is a fairly light-footed pressure striker. He likes to strike off his front foot, so he's usually moving forward. He shows decent range management, strikes long, but he lunges a bit. I don't really love his guard. He drops his hand and he gestures a lot. He has solid low kicks from both legs, legit takedown ability, well-timed trips, scrambles and transitions well. Seems to lack control, but he's a dog. Okay, and then on the other side of it, we got Westin. Oh, Westin. Westin is a light-footed striker, bladed stance, does tend to plant at times. He has decent striking. He carries his hands low, but he has a pretty diverse kicking game at range. He will blitz with his chin in the air. He seems to be a good transitional grappler. He has a lanky frame, and he's dangerous. But he can be outclassed. You know, I don't think you're crazy if you look at the Westin Wilson by submission. I think that it's a real possibility in this fight. Not to say that I think it's like super, super likely or whatever, but I do think that's his path to victory. And, you know, there's a couple things you have to take into account when you're looking at this fight. One, Westin's a lot bigger. He's going to have a pretty big reach advantage on this guy. And so if he's able to stay light on his feet and use his kicks and stuff to attack Yizha from range, then he's kind of going to force Yizha to probably like shoot a takedown and try to get this fight to the ground. Now, that doesn't mean that, if he does this, Westin Wilson's just going to lock up the submission or whatever. No, but it definitely opens up that window of opportunity. So I think the most likely way to look at this is probably that this fight ends by submission, or it goes under. I don't think this fight sees the cards, or if this fight sees the cards, that's not a great look for either of these guys, honestly. So I think the under is likely, and I don't think you're crazy to look at a Westin Wilson by sub, or fight ends by sub, or the other way I would look at it is Yizha by finish, sub or finish. You know, I think there's a world he could TKO him as well, so you gotta be careful with that. But I think all in all, for me to actually, let's pull up Yizha again just real quick. Okay, hold on. Okay, Yizha. Legit takedown ability, well-timed and trip. Scrambles interesting as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how Yizha's a minus 1,200 favorite, honestly. I don't think he should be. I think that's crazy. I mean, I understand Westin hasn't had the most success in the UFC, but let's be real. It's like they say, styles make fights. You know, it's the styles that make the matchup. It's not, you know, the MMA math stuff and going, oh, well, this, I mean, I don't know. You'd be amazed how confused you are as an MMA fan when you watch the fights and listen to the commentators and you don't do the research like I do, because I remember being on that side of it, and then I started doing all the research, and then I'm like, man, these guys really make you think that these fighters are people they're not. Like, they fight in a way they don't fight at all, or they have a skill they don't have. I mean, it's pretty wild. But I don't know that Yizha should be a minus 1,200 favorite. I'm having a really hard time even going like, yeah, I think he's going to win. It's tough. Real tough. I say just look at the under. Fight doesn't go. I mean, yeah, that's what I think. You know, I would almost rather be on Westin at plus 700. There's value there. And then just be really, you know what I mean? Like, stay away from her outside of some of the things I said, because, you know, how ridiculous is everyone going to look if this guy's a minus 1,200 and he gets submitted in the first or second round? I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna bypass this one for now. You know, I just don't feel good about this fight at all. I'm gonna be on the side of the under. That's it. That's the side I'm taking. I ain't about to just say, oh, this is a volatile fight. There ain't no way you can be confident in this. So let's get out of here. I ain't messing with this one no more. Let's move on. We got Michel Pereira going against Daukus. Let's pull these gentlemen up. Michel Pereira. He is a light-footed striker. He uses footwork, lateral movement to stay at range and pick his shots. He does carry his hands low, but he's a pretty long athlete that uses explosion to close distance with unorthodox striking. He fades as the fight goes. And then I think it's Kyle on the other side. He is a flat-footed striker, shows some bounce. Footwork looks decent. Striking looks decent. He fights long. He has a solid right jab, nice backside kicks to all levels. He threw a really nice counter left cross in his last fight that dropped his opponent. And he will engage in the clinch, where he is a bit complacent, and we'll talk about this just a little bit. So I would like to reference the Roman Dolidze fight where he got kneed in the face. Now, if you watch some of Kyle's grappling matches, you'll see that he's really kind of, he's not very stout or very stable when he's in these clinching sequences, and he just kind of like, his upper body's a little loosey-goosey or what, I don't even know. But I seen the Roman Dolidze fight, and then I actually watched some of his grappling tape, and I seen that, and it was very reminiscent of that fight. And so I think that because he's trained like that, or he's so used to doing that in his grappling matches, that it's something that he's transitioned over to the MMA world or in his MMA game. And it's a really, really bad thing for him to have in the MMA, because it's almost the sole reason he got knocked out against Roman Lidze. Okay, so I don't love that about his game. I think it's something that he needs to nip in the butt right now. Hopefully he's already started to address that. Because, yeah, he needs to be a little bit more assertive in that position. But, you know, is what it is. He does have some takedown ability. It's not great, but he has some. He has solid transitional grappling. He has a nice front choke series. You know, his nickname's with like the Darce Knight or something like that. So he has a really nice Darce series. I don't know that he's going to be able to use that in this fight. What I think is going to happen is that because he's pretty flat-footed, pretty basic striking skill set, and on the other side you have Pereira, which is he's just a more dynamic striker, just more of an athlete all in all. And he's going to use his footwork to kind of move around the cage and pick his shots. So I do think that he should be the favorite, so I think that's right. And I really don't even... I think that if Kyle's going to win, it's going to be in the later rounds, because he's going to have to, like, weather the Pereira, show. And that's possible, I suppose. But I just don't see Kyle as, like, this big, physical, imposing person that is going to affect Pereira the way that, like, Abus did. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. And so I'm actually going to pick him by decision. That's how I think this is going to play out. I think it goes long. I think he ends up just outworking him, taking the first 2 rounds, maybe dropping the third. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But, and I think there are some reasons to, like, have a pause for concern with Pereira just because of how he performed in his last outing. So I think that's fair. But honestly, what I think is that Pereira is so used to fighting down a weight class and just being, like, so much bigger than everyone, that Abus was bigger than him. And I think that, and then he's also very dynamic in his own right. And so I think that him being on the front foot, push, kind of wore him out. And, he just never really got going. So I don't think we're going to see that in this fight. I think that we're going to kind of see, what we're used to seeing, him just kind of dance around the cage and being unorthodox and doing, weird, explosive, things. So I think that he wins this fight. And I'm going to take him by decision. And then we will move on to the next bout. We have Rongzhu going against Austin Hubbard. This is a pretty fun matchup. Pretty evenly... whatever, you know what I mean? They match up pretty evenly. Let's pull up Rongzhu. Alright, Rongzhu. This guy is a fairly light-footed pressure striker. He does show some bounce, movement. I don't know why that's separate. Anyways, he does show some bounce, but isn't really trying to manage range. He has decent fundamental boxing. He has a high guard, decent left jab, but he's a willing brawler in the pocket, and he will throw wide punches. Power looks solid. He seems to counter pretty well, but he doesn't move his head much. This guy's a dog. He has nice backside low kick. Takedown defense looks pretty solid. He will sprawl and stuff the head. And then when we'll go over to our boy Hubbard. Let's pull him up. Is there only one B? Ooh, I put a 7. Alright. Hubbard. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He uses measured pressure with decent range management, so he stays on the front foot. Like, well, he's in your face, but not literally. He fights with good pace. This guy's always in motion. He's always switching stances, throwing kicks and punches, and even if he'll just pump jabs and whatever. He's constantly in motion, even if he's not really trying to throw anything effective. It's just moving and keeping you occupied and whatever. But he has solid wrestling and grappling. He can be out-physical and outclassed. I would say that his style is really just kind of like outpace, outlast. And he's a solid fighter. Like, he's a well-rounded fighter. He's not really great at any one thing. I think that the unique things about him is like I said, just constant motion. To me, that's something that's pretty unique about him. Not saying there's not other people that are constantly moving, but I think it's the way he does it it's kind of unique. Because he's just kind of like stepping, and it'd be like stepping from like one stance to the next, and pumping jabs and throwing kicks, and just like I said, just constantly in motion. And I do think that Rongzhu is going to have like the more moments on the feet. I think that he probably lands bigger punches, and then he's also going to fight at a pretty good pace. I don't see him falling off a cliff or anything like that. I do think that he should be able to defend a lot of Hubbard's wrestling attempts and whatnot. And so I think that Rongzhu is more than likely going to win this, probably by decision. And I could even see it being like, just because it's going to be tough, and I could see it being a split. I go Rongzhu decision over possible split. And that's just the way I see this fight playing out. All right, on to the next. We go. So we got Maheshate going against Gage Young. This is another interesting bout for sure. Let's pull up Maheshate. Poof. All right, Maheshate is a light-footed striker. He has good movement, but he can be pressured back. But he will circle. Like, he's a guy that he can be pushed back. So I think if you stay on the front foot, you could probably push him into the cage. But he will circle. He'll go back and then he'll circle. He has a decent left jab. Likes to throw backside front kick. Nice counter right cross. I don't really love his hand placement. He leaves his chin exposed, and he may have a brittle chin. It's been touched up a few times. Ground game is relatively unknown, and then I don't think that's going to be an issue in this fight, but it's something that we definitely need to learn more about. And on the other side, we have Gage Young. Gage Young is a fairly light-footed striker. He shows some bounce, but tends to be pretty plotty at times. Striking seems solid. He has a decent left jab, nice backside low and front kick. He will throw it naked at times, which is a negative. Decent frontside body and high kick. I don't really like the way he exits the pocket. Takedown defense looks good. He has a nice sprawl, heavy hips. Seems to be pretty solid wrestler and a sound grappler. Good chin, good cardio. For me, it's pretty, like, I feel pretty good about the Gage Young side, just because he does have a good chin, he does have good cardio. You could see Maheshate's probably got a little bit of a size advantage on him. But I could also see Gage trying to implement some wrestling here, and he does look like a pretty solid wrestler, honestly. So I could see him using some wrestling wear on him. I'm going to lean with the side of Gage Young. I don't really have a method of victory because, Maheshate's chin is in question for sure. But I think that he probably has the advantage on the feet. So I would just lean with Gage Young. I think that he's going to be able to just get him to the ground eventually and just outwork him. That's what I think. He'll outwork him. I'm going to see Gage Young at the beginning. I'm just curious. Yeah, I mean, he fights at a pretty high pace, so I could definitely see him getting the takedown and securing the win. So I'm going to go with Gage Young, just money line. I don't really have a method on this, but I feel pretty confident he'll probably win that fight. And then we'll move on. But I do want to note also real quick before we move on, even though Maheshate, he's got some real power, you know what I mean? That dude does have some real power. Yep. I still favor Gage Young. I think Gage Young takes it. He's a slight favorite, minus 125. Okay, so we're moving on to the next bout. This matchup is a newcomer making his debut against Kiefer Crosbie. So we got Taiyilake Nueraji going against Kiefer Crosbie. And let's pull this guy up. He looks all right, you know. I mean, I watched tape on him, obviously, and never seen the guy before. So let's pull this guy up. He is a fairly light-footed striker. He has solid footwork, seems to have good range management. Seems to be a bit of a counter striker at range. He does have a nasty counter left cross to overhand right. He carries his hands low. He has a nice backside body kick and step-in knee. He seems to be violent in the clinch. Questions around his ground game. So, yeah, we don't really know too much about his ground game. But luckily for him, you know, Crosby's not, you know, known for his ground game either, honestly. If this guy was more of a ground game, then I would just take him by sub because Crosbie doesn't know how to defend really any submissions. But this guy, you know, when I was watching his film, you know, it's probably not like a super fair comparison or whatever, but he did show me shades of like Anderson Silva, dude. You know, like the way he like not really slips, but you know, he carries his hands low, and just the way he's able to manage his range and just stay right out of his opponents and just kind of slip and then counter. That's kind of his style. And he looks pretty legit, you know, in that nasty step-in knee. It was pretty nice as well. So I think this guy's got some real promise. But, you know, like I said, there's still real questions around his ground game. And, I mean, that could be every bit of difference between you being a solid UFC fighter and being out within 3 or 4 fights. So it'll be interesting to see how his ground game is in the UFC. This isn't the fight that's going to show us. This is more of just an introduction to this guy into the UFC. I think they're putting him in a spot to try to make him look pretty good. So he's probably a relatively big favorite if I had to guess. And I don't know that he should be that big of a favorite because, you know, Crosby's a guy that, while, yeah, he has a real hole in his ground game, his striking's never really been that bad. You know, he can kind of bang with the best of them. I don't know that the guy's ever really even truly been knocked out. Let's pull him up real quick. Yeah, he had one TKO, but I don't think it was a real TKO. I think it was like a ref stoppage or doctor stoppage or whatever. Yeah, doctor stoppage. I can't reference it because, you know, I didn't really follow Crosbie outside the UFC. But you see he's been submitted twice in the UFC already. But, you know, he did knock out Alex Oliveira and Rise. Man, I think he just wore him down. Never lost a decision. You know, this Nueraji guy, he looked pretty tall. He looked pretty big. So, that's another thing, is he should have a pretty big size advantage on Crosbie. Let's pull this guy up real quick. 10 TKOs, 1 submission. I don't know. This guy's probably pretty legit, honestly. I wonder what the knockout line for him is, just because the other dude's never been knocked out. Well, let's go over him one more time and try to get a better idea of how this is going to play out. All right. Nueraji is a fairly light-footed striker. He has solid footwork. He seems to have good range management. Seems to be a bit of a counter striker at range. He has nasty counter left crossed, overhand right. He carries his hands low. Nice backside body kick, step in knee. Violent in the clinch. Questions around his ground game. And then let's go to Crosbie or Kiefer. That ain't gonna do it. That ain't gonna do it either. Oh, did we exit it? All right, let me pull it back up. Killing us, but all right. K-I-E. All right. Kiefer Crosbie is a light-footed striker, shows pretty good movement laterally. Range management is in question because he will fall into a brawl. He has snappy backside low kick, throws decent straight punches when entering the pocket, and follows with flurries of wide punches in the pocket. Has pretty nice ground and pound if he finds his way to top position, and he has pretty shoddy grappling defense. Yeah, I don't know that he's going to be able to find his way in. I think that this other guy, with his ability to strike and maintain range, his footwork, I think that he's going to be able to counter a lot of what Crosbie wants to do. You know, that's really what I think. I think that this kid's going to counter everything Crosbie wants to do to him. So, I think he's the reasonable favorite. There's a lot of unknowns around this because this is a UFC newcomer. And so it's not something I'm going to feel super confident in. You know, I already mentioned that Crosby's never really been knocked out. That doesn't mean he can't be knocked out, but you know, if this is a stand-up fight, you know, there is a world where he could win it because he's not terrible on the feet. But I think stylistically, this kid should be able to manage Crosby's offense. I think that he should be able to basically counter anything he wants to do with him. So I do think that I will side with him on the official pick, and we're just going to move on to the next fight. Our next fight is... We're getting there. We got Sumudaerji going against Kevin Borjas. Sumudaerji... This is another fun one because these are two pretty good strikers. Let's pull up Sumudaerji. Alright, Sumudaerji is a light-footed striker. He has good movement, decent range management. He can be pressured straight back. He fights long, clean 1-2, powerful left cross, has nice backside and front side kicks. He does keep his hands low. Looks lost on the ground. So yeah, he's a guy that's going to kind of dance around, trying to maintain his distance, and fire these long shots. He should be the longer fighter in this. Should have a reach advantage. He just fights long. And let's pull up. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. Pardon me. Sorry. All right. He's going against Borjas. That's right. All right, Borjas. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He has some bounce, but tends to plant his feet looking to counter. He has a clean 1-2, nasty overhand right counter. He does have fast hands, a nice step-in knee. You know, the plus and minus of this guy is he will follow his opponents to the ground. He has good ground and pound, but questionable grappling defense. I don't think that should be an issue here. I mean, you know, the back end of that, you know, the like grappling defense is something that you could just almost erase. I mean, no, I wouldn't say erase necessarily, but what I mean by that is that Sumudaerji is not really going to offer any offensive grappling necessarily that's should put him in any real danger. And so it's kind of irrelevant, at least in this fight. So I do think that the way I see this fight playing out is Sumudaerji is going to be more willing to be like, I think, the first one to go. I think that he's going to be throwing more. He might not have necessarily more volume. I think that is going to depend on how the fight plays out. But I do think that he'll lead the fight in the sense that he'll be the one throwing first. And because he should have a relatively nice size advantage, I think that he will be able to be pretty effective in what he's trying to do. And also the other thing is this guy's never been knocked out, so I think he's pretty durable. You know, people talk about Kevin Borjas and his power and how he knocks everyone down or whatever. Yeah, I mean, let's pull him up. I think he does. I mean, his counter's powerful. It looks nice, looks real nice, but I just don't know that he's going to win this fight with counters. You know, yeah, a guy like Ronaldo, yeah, it makes more sense. Honestly, even Van, it would make more sense with Van, but the thing with Van is, like, he fights with such pace that probably made the difference in that fight. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got to go with Sumudaerji. I think Sumudaerji wins this fight. I just think that he's able to have bigger moments, you know. He leads the fight, he goes first, has the bigger moments, and he walks away the winner. Now, let's see if... So he's been knocked out once before. It had to have been forever ago. Or no, it was recent. It was that TKO. That's what it was. The ground and pound. Let's pull up Sumudaerji. Yeah, I don't know. I just think he wins the fight. I think he goes first and he wins. I don't know how. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really have a strong lean on the method of victory or whatever. I just think that he should be favored in this fight. Like I said, I think the way this plays out is he's able to just kind of dictate where the fight goes, and he's going to be the one to lead the fight. He's gonna be throwing punches first, and using his footwork to kind of evade, and then yeah. So we'll see, because at this point we don't really know, but that's my guess. He's 5'8". That's the other thing I want to see. Let's see how tall Kevin is. It says he's 5'8". He's 5'5", so it's not a huge difference, but Sumudaerji is pretty long. And then let's go on to the Sergei Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Another interesting fight here, because you have Sergei, which was kind of like the boogeyman forever. Well, and now all of a sudden, maybe not. I don't know. I think you can give him 2 passes. All right. Now I'm just looking at it. I'm just kind of thinking about the fight, thinking about how his career has played out. All right. So anyways, let's pull this guy up. Hello. Sergei. Sergei is a fairly light-footed pressure striker. He's a bit plotty, but has decent footwork and range management. He pumps a decent 2-level jab. His guard's a bit wide. I've seen people just split his guard quite a bit. He does have big power in his right overhand and hook. Doesn't have like great output. But really, he doesn't need great output, because he's a guy that can just put you away. Now, when we go to the other side of this, we are going to be looking at Waldo. Waldo's a guy that is a plotting striker. He's flat-footed, decent boxing. He has a solid left jab, powerful overhand right. Carries his hands low. Nice backside low kick and side kick, which are relatively heavy. He's willing to engage in the clinch. He uses dirty boxing, uppercuts, elbows. He has shown some takedown ability and pretty solid takedown defense. So this is a tough fight for me, mostly because of Sergei's low output. I don't think that Waldo's going to just outlast Pavlovich. Oh, it's a tough one. It's tough. I actually kind of see this fight going over. I think it's set at 1.5. I think it'll probably go over. But we're going to pick Sergei. Nothing too crazy here. I think there's a world where Waldo wins this fight. This is an interesting one. It's really, really tough. It's really, really tough to call it. Let's pull these guys up. When I'm looking at this, I feel like, okay, like with Volkov, Volkov's got all this range. He's learned to fight with his length a lot better. Tom Aspinall's current champion right now. And outside of Volkov and Aspinall, the only other person to win against him was Overeem. Now, Overeem was obviously a good fighter in his prime. But the thing I look at in this is that if you don't just put him away, you're going to have to like out-volume him, and what's going to allow you to do that is your distance, like your range management, and just like Volkov obviously had size advantage on him. Using long, straight, long punches, teep kicks, stuff like that. And I don't think Waldo can do that. Waldo does look pretty big. I think he weighed in heavier. But I don't know that he really has that type of skill set. He don't really have that game. And so it certainly makes me question whether he could even do that. I don't think he's going to put him away. Let's pull up him. I don't even know. I don't think he really knocks out many people for a heavyweight. He's got 6. He's got 7 decisions. You know, the higher level you see decision. He knocked out Ryan Spann, but that had more to do with Spann than anything else. Oh, it's my mother. Let's see. Yeah, not really knocking out a whole lot of people. Bresky. It's interesting, that's for sure, Trump. I don't think he can do it. I mean, he's not going to knock him out. And he's not going to out-technique him. He could outwork him. Like, he could out-volume him, I think. But I don't think it'll be to the extent of, like, I don't think it's going to outweigh the moments. Because the thing with the thing with Pavlovich is when he hits you, you know it, and everyone can see it. You know it, and everyone else knows it. If you are still awake, you know. So I'm gonna ride with Pavlovich. I think he kind of gets back on track here, but I also think that looking at the over, like over 1.5, is not the worst idea. But that's a volatile bet. That's super volatile because, you know, when you're dealing with a guy that has power, like Pavlovich does, you know, when you're banking on it going over, you're going to be sweating that out hardcore. But I still think it's very possible, and so I lean him. And that's sad. I'm probably just stay away from this heavyweight fight. Anything could happen, so be careful. Be careful out there in the MMA streets, bud. Alright, so let's move on. The next fight we have is Brian T. City Ortega going against Funkmaster Aljamain Sterling. Yeah, I don't love this fight. I really don't. I don't know why they put it together. Like, why are we watching this? Why are we putting Brian Ortega against Aljamain Sterling? Like, I mean, what does it even really do for the game? You know, like, what's it do for the division? The 7 against the 8? Yeah, it's a good fight, but, like, you know how many other good fighters are out there that are... I mean, look at what they're doing to Charles Johnson. You know what I mean? Like, I just think this is a bit ridiculous, but whatever. You know, I'm still going to watch it. Brian Ortega, let's pull this guy up. I actually have a soft spot for this guy. I like him quite a bit. Ortega. All right, Brian Ortega. This guy is a fairly light-footed striker. He has decent movement, but does seem to chase a bit. He strikes long, but has an undisciplined guard and doesn't have very good head movement. He has nice backside low kick. This dude's an absolute dog. He has solid takedown ability, and this guy's an elite transitional grappler. Nasty triangles, nice guillotine. I mean, yeah, he's a really, really dangerous grappler. And so you're never really safe with this guy on the ground. Now, when we go over to, let's see, Aljamain. Sterling. All right, Sterling is a light-footed pressure striker. He does have good movement. He circles pretty well. Boxing is decent. He switches stance. He has a clean 1-2. Has solid kicks at range. Low, side, and front. Good wrestling. Well-timed shots. He's explosive. Good at getting to the back. He's a very sound grappler. Yeah, and that's why. I mean, like, it's a good fight. I think it's a 5-rounder. And I don't know. It's hard to go against Aljamain in this because he's got a controlling advantage. He has this, he's going to have a speed advantage. Just overall more athletic. And I don't know if Ortega can just like outdog Sterling. Because I feel like a lot of times that's what he does, is he just like outdogs a lot of his opponents. You know, the Yair Rodriguez triangle outdogged him. He was hurt in the first fight. Volkanovski, that was a good fight. It was a very good fight, actually. I mean, he guillotined. I mean, there is a world, you know, because if Aljamain's gonna shoot takedowns, there's a world he could catch him in something for sure. I could see it. 5-round fight. He's got a chance. I think you just got to enjoy this one. It's really, really hard. It's really, really hard to see how this one plays out because does Aljamain just stand with him? I don't know. Can you just stand with him the whole time? That'll be interesting to see. Aljamain's a pretty good striker. Mostly. I think as long as he's not going against somebody that's like an elite striker, like a Sean O'Malley or, obviously that's easy to say in hindsight or whatever, but I think that as long as he's not going against like a really, really strong like counter striker, somebody that's got really good range, he does pretty well in the striking. So I think it's a good fight, and I think that Brian Ortega has a chance of getting a submission, but I think that's maybe his only path. Let's see. I mean, I guess he could knock him out. I don't know. This is a tough one. This is the top fighters, or the top of the divisions are, to me, they're always the most difficult unless they're completely different fighters, which in this case, yeah, they are. There are some pretty major differences in how they fight, but their core is grappling, right? One's BJJ, one's more wrestling and control. And so then it might just come down to, how they fare on the feet. It's just a tough fight. It's a tough fight to call because they're both pretty well-rounded also. So let's look at the line. Ooh, Ortega's a pretty big dog. It's a plus 240. And you got the number 7 going against the number 8. I don't know. Aljamain probably figures out a way to pull this out. But I don't mind Ortega, like I said, look at submission or Ortega finish. I don't think he wins a decision. Or you might be able to bet him Brian Ortega finish no action. Because I'm not sure if Sterling's going to finish Ortega. So that might not be a terrible way to look at it. Because you might be able to get a good line on that. When was the last time Aljamain even finished somebody? It's been a while. Was it Sandhagen? He's got 8 subs, only 3 knockouts. Let's see the last time he finished somebody. Dillashaw, yeah, but I think he hurt his arm or his shoulder. Sandhagen, rear naked, 2020. So it's been quite a while. I think that's the only real legit finish he's had since. So, yeah, that's how I'd look at it. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Obviously, we want to be able to break the fighters down and be able to go, hey, this is going to be, this is how the fight's going to play out. And do our best to get the correct results. And if not, we improve our notes. If there's things we miss, we improve that stuff. That way, hopefully next time, they are correct. But like I said, when you get to the top of the division, it's really, really difficult to make those predictions, especially when they're both pretty evenly matched in all aspects. And so ultimately what this is coming down to is their styles is, Aljamain's more of a control guy, and that's probably the most likely scenario in this fight. And so I think that if you can look at it from a betting angle and go, okay, well, let's go like T-City finish no action, or even Aljamain decision no action. Something like that might be the way to look at it. And, if we can come out on the right side of that, then we're looking pretty good. So, nonetheless, let's go ahead and move on to the next fight. And I believe the next fight is going to be our main event. And we have Johnny Walker going against Mingyang Zhang. And this is a super interesting fight because these are two, honestly, in my opinion, they're two kill or be killed fighters. And so before we even hop into this, we're looking at this, ends in round 1, under 1.5. And honestly, those are the best ways to probably look at this. Johnny Walker, round 1 finish. I wouldn't go method because the likeliness, he could submit him or knock him out. And let's just pull him up real quick. We're just going to kind of talk about this a little bit, and then we'll go over to the notes in just a moment. But he does have 3 submissions, and one is against Kudalaba. So yeah, I mean, KO is probably more likely. But the thing is when you go to the other side of this, Zhang is a guy that has been knocked out 3 times and submitted 2 times. And when I say knocked out, this guy was flatlined. I mean, like, didn't even have a pulse. And was choked as well. So, granted, this has been quite some time ago. You know, choked out. That was 11 years ago. Let's see. Knocked out 9 years ago. Knocked out again. What is it? 8 years ago or 7 years ago. 7 years ago. And then choked out 6 years ago. Been on a pretty good run, but, you know, to be fair, a lot of them are kind of no-namers. The only one on this list that you would look at and go, had a shot was probably Anthony Smith. And I thought Anthony Smith did have a shot, but, you know, you can never really gauge or, you know, like, this guy had 1 foot out the door, you know, honestly. And I was actually at that fight in real life, and it just seemed like he didn't even come there to win. I mean, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he wanted to win, but his heart was already out of it. And so, you know, your will to fight is such a huge part of fighting. You know, it's one of the intangibles. It's one of the things about a fighter that it goes overlooked, you know. And honestly, it's a big difference between guys getting submitted and knocked out and all these things. So, you know, I don't want to discredit him too much. I mean, obviously he's been on a tear, and these are all guys that fight professionally, and he has been putting them away. But, and I don't want to sit here and pretend like Johnny Walker's not a guy that can't be put away, because obviously he can be. And that's why I think the most likely thing is, you know, fight ends in round 1 or fight is under 1.5. Those are the most likely outcomes of this fight. I mean, just to be real. You know, you talk to all the people will be like, oh, if I can get a line at this guy at minus 150, round 1 KO, I don't know. I don't know if I want to lay chalk on that. Like, it just, you know, either of these guys can knock each other out or whatever. So, and they've both been pretty willing to walk out that door. So, with that being said, you know, then you can look at, like I said, you can look at the Johnny Walker round 1 finish. You know, you get good number on that. Yeah, is it going to happen? No, I don't know. Yeah, you sprinkle it. Why not? You know, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. But let's hop over to the notes. Get a better idea. Walker. All right. Johnny Walker is a fairly light-footed striker. He has decent movement but tends to plant his feet. Doesn't maintain range very well. He has a kick-heavy attack. He's dynamic, explosive. He likes to throw a right cross off the low kick. He does have an undisciplined guard, and he has poor head movement. And even though I don't have it in here, I believe he's only been submitted 1 time or maybe none in his career. So, you know that he's fairly well versed on the ground, at least enough so to not get submitted. So, yeah, he's only lost 1 time via submission, and I don't see that really being a huge threat here anyways. And then when we go over to his opponent, this guy is a plotting striker. He has solid boxing, a high guard. He has heavy leg kicks. He plants his feet when he throws, there to be countered. He has a questionable chin. He's a willing grappler and has been submitted. You know, his notes probably need to be updated, honestly. But, you know, the thing about Zhang is I think he's going to be more willing to commit to the game plan and just moving forward and, you know, So I think that he is probably the rightful favorite here. But I couldn't be too confident in that. So what's Johnny Walker's going to dance around and throw explosive shots, jumping knees, and he's just more of an explosive striker, and he could certainly catch Zhang and knock him out, no doubt about it. But he could also easily just be caught and get knocked out too. So I think fight ends round 1, under 1.5. All that. Those are the best ways to look at it, and I don't know what else to say about it. Honestly, I think that's all you can do. Enjoy the fights if you can. I mean, I think these started like 3 in the morning. It's not really a huge deal to me, but I'll certainly be trying my best to keep up with them and update the notes and everything, and see how the results of the work turns out. Hopefully well. So I don't know. This week is pretty tough. We got a lot of names, a lot of faces we don't typically see. Matchmaking is just a little bit different, when they're putting on an event in a place like Shanghai. So, with the Contender Series and then this, it's been a long week. Hopefully we do well. I actually done pretty well in the Contender Series myself. But anyways, hope everybody enjoys the fights. Again, please like, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to go up. All right, I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.